Welcome everybody to Law and Crime Daily. I'm Jesse Weber. The man accused of brutally stabbing 4 college students to death inside of an Idaho home will have to stay behind bars. That decision came down Thursday during a short status hearing. Bryan Kohberger appeared in court alongside his public defender. He acknowledged that he understands the charges that are against him and waived his right to a speedy trial. This case involves investigations from multiple jurisdictions, and the attorneys will need some time to gather up everything. Kohberger, a 28-year-old working toward a PhD in criminology at Washington State University, is accused of killing Ethan Chacon, Xana Kernodle, Kaylee Gonsalves, and Madison Mogan at the nearby University of Idaho. The students were murdered on November 13th, but police didn't release information about a suspect until about 6 weeks later. And during that time, Bryan Kohberger and his father made a cross-country road trip back to his parents' home in Pennsylvania. That is where Kohberger was officially arrested and brought back to Idaho to face murder charges. A probable cause affidavit connects Kohberger to the crime using DNA, cell phone data, and more. During Thursday's hearing, the judge set a preliminary hearing date of June 26 and said there will be, quote, no bail at this point in time. Law and Crime hosted a Q&A after the hearing where veteran FBI agent Bobby Chacon answered a question about circumstantial evidence.
With circumstantial evidence, it's the accumulation, right? It's the totality of it. It's not the one particular piece. I see people picking apart little pieces, but before a jury and during a long trial, it's the totality of that circumstantial evidence that's built. It's an accumulation thing. It builds and builds and builds to the point where a juror reaches that point beyond any reasonable doubt because of the amount of it. It's not necessarily the quality or the attackability of any particular piece of evidence, but it's the accumulation of that circumstantial evidence that then gives rise to that beyond reasonable doubt standard.
Time to bring in my co-host and public defender, Brian Buckmeyer. Brian, good to see you. This was a quick hearing. We know that preliminary hearing this summer, that's going to be the one that everybody's going to watch. What can you tell us about it?
Yeah, Jesse, preliminary hearings are something that the defense can request or waive. Here, the defense has chosen to have one, so if all stays the same till late June, we'll likely see that what looks like a mini trial. Preliminary hearings are where a magistrate judge determines if there is probable cause to believe that a felony occurred and that it was the defendant who committed it. I usually tell my clients it's asking if it's more likely than not that this person did it. If the judge agrees, case goes to district court for arraignment and the case continues. If not, the case can be dismissed or charges amended. But we may not see the hearing because the defense can ask to exclude the public if they can prove the public hearing would deny Kohberger a fair trial and there are no reasonable alternatives to keeping the public out. June 26 is a long ways away, but the defense waived Kohberger's right to a speedy trial, so the case isn't going anywhere anytime soon. This gives the defense the time to do their own investigation, collect evidence they've demanded from the prosecution, and try to convince the judge there's no probable cause in the preliminary hearing.
Okay, let me bring in now Terry Austin, our other co-host and former trial attorney. Brian outlined the whole criminal process, including the purpose of the preliminary hearing. But do you think the prosecution is going to have enough evidence at that hearing to actually move the case forward?
I do. I think, like Brian said, both the defense and the prosecution will be gathering additional evidence. They have till June 26th. It's probably going to be 4 or 5 days. But right now, the prosecution, I think, has enough evidence. Remember, they have that DNA on the knife sheath. They have the fact that he was in the area, and they got that from the cell phone tower. And, you know, they also have a description from DM, the witness, one of the other surviving victims in this issue, in this, whole case. But I do think that the prosecution is going to get additional information. Remember, they have searched the parents' home, they've searched his home, they searched the car. They could find DNA from one of the victims, or they could find other information that will make the case even stronger. So it's good to give them the additional time.
Yeah, and look, who knows if anybody has anything about Bryan Kohberger saying anything as well that might come out as well. So this is a case constantly in motion, and we're going to cover it here on Law and Crime Daily.